Welcome to Brazos Matters. I'm Jay Sokol. So just over a year ago, we had one of Aggieland's most recognizable and trusted people in the community in the Brazos Matters guest chair, Shel Winkley. So you know Shel. He was part of the KBTX weather team for more than 14 years and chief meteorologist for nearly 11 of those. He was the man. The sleeves rolled up when the worst stuff was hitting, or at least on the way here. And we knew he was leaving television, but he didn't say where he was going until he was our guest. So Shel has now been a weather and climate engagement specialist with Climate Central for about a year or so, and we're going to learn what that's been like. Plus, we're going to talk about what climate data tells him about the evolution of this community. Ladies and gentlemen, Shel Winkley.
Howdy, friends. There was a time, the sleeves rolled up, the jacket comes off. Yeah. Everyone was like, oh, that's like a threat level, right? Like it's leveling up the severe weather coverage.
Sure.
It was just hot in the studio. But as I got older, I started wearing glasses. And one day I put glasses on and somebody on Facebook was like, glasses? We've never seen him wear glasses. Like, what does this mean?
Threat level midnight.
I just couldn't see the screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, really, the stereotype is jacket comes off. Tie is either loosened or goes away, and the sleeves go up.
Yeah, no, it's just hot.
And you know it's serious when the sleeves go up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was just hot.
It was just hot.
All right. Well, way to tear down that little myth. Okay, so remind people what your work days look like now at Climate Central, and why do you do it?
Yeah, so gave up the studio, and now I work in a closet in the back of my kids' playroom. It's the same closet you saw me working and doing forecasts from during COVID. We just took out the camera and the TV. I put up some what's called hipster octopus wallpaper behind me, and that's where I work now. I talk on Zoom a lot, but what I'm doing, Climate Central, we're a non-advocacy nonprofit that deals with the science and the data of weather and climate change, but specifically the storytelling around that data. So what we do is, and you probably saw some of those graphics when I was on air here in town. We do that for over 240 cities here in the United States. So we do the hard part. We do the data, we do the science, and we give that to journalists, and we give it to meteorologists, and we help them tell the stories. Because I knew the story in Bryan College Station, right? A meteorologist in Houston or Dallas or Austin knows the stories for their cities. How is this heat impacting those cities? So that's what we do. We help make that connection to climate change. We help make that science clear and understandable so that then communities and people can take that information and do something about it, do something about climate change.
So within this new team, what have you had to learn along the way? And based on your experience, what have you had to teach these folks you work with?
Yeah, let me answer the second one first, because I think that was, when it came down to it, I really struggled. Like, I loved KBTX. I loved broadcast news. I think they're important. What you do is important every day, right? But my justification was I could teach the 10 students I got to teach here at Texas A&M, and I could teach a couple interns every year how to talk about weather and climate change. I could talk to this community, or I can take what I know and go help other meteorologists and journalists across the country and globally talk about climate change and talk about it simply. So that's been a really cool part of it. I think what I've learned is that there's a lot, right? When we talk about climate change, there's different things we can look at. We can look at trends, the data. The data doesn't lie. The data is there. But what I really think is cool, we used to be able to say that no one weather event could be called climate change, right? Now what we can do with that is not to say this weather event was made because of climate change, but now we can use what's called attribution science, and we can say to what degree, how much more intense was a weather system, a hurricane, a heat wave, how much more likely is that now? And then with future warming, how much more likely will that be? Or how much more intense could a hurricane be? How much more rainfall will it drop using this science? So again, a hurricane's going to hurricane because that's weather, right?
Okay.
But now we have the science to understand the climate change fingerprint on these extreme weather events. And then we use that knowledge to say, okay, if we don't change something, here's how much worse an event like this could be in the future. And that's important because it's important to understand the weather that we're experiencing. The way that you experience climate change is through extreme weather, whether you're walking outside to it or you're scrolling on your phone and you see the videos and the pictures.
Yeah. Yeah. Just how many times am I going to have to replace my roof because of hail?
Right.
Seems like it's getting more often. You alerted me to a couple of lists that College Station and Bryan have found themselves ranking really high on, and I want to get your thoughts about those. So let's start with AARP's recent rankings of metro areas with the fastest growing retiree populations that are prone to heat waves, hurricanes, floods, and things like that. So College Station Bryan ranks number 4 on that list nationally. Why do we rank so high?
Yeah, so AARP actually came to us and they were asking, how can we tell this story? So we're looking specifically at people that are 65 years or older. We have a lot of old ags who love to come back to this community, retire here so that they can go watch Aggie football,
sure,
baseball, softball, track, whatever it is. So the reason that we're on the list, it basically looked at 2 things, heat and floods. And I think if you've lived around here, we've seen both of those, but the bigger issue of that is going to be heat. So what we know is that College Station, when we're looking at what's called the 95th percentile for heat, so think of it as the hottest day that you would expect to feel in Bryan and College Station, which is about 98, 99 degrees. We know that on average, this is using that attribution science, that fingerprint, we know that on average about 24 more days, so almost an entire month more each year is made that hot or hotter because of climate change's influence on Bryan and College Station. So we're number 4 there. And we also know that the annual flood loss that we could see in the city every single year because of flooding events. Think of what happened here in town in May. We had that big rain event. We had one last May. $4.3 million a year is what could be lost in Bryan and College Station because of flooding. And as we go into the future, it's projected another 5.8%. So that's another 250,000 per year that we could see as climate change continues. With the rain event, because we're not coastal, so we're talking about inland freshwater flooding. We know that with climate change, the atmosphere is a greedier atmosphere. It can hold more moisture. That's just simple physics that we learned back in junior high, or maybe you've forgotten since junior high.
I forgot since junior high.
Yeah. And so if it can hold more moisture, that means the droughts can get worse. It can take more moisture from vegetation and from our ground. But it also means that what goes up must come down. And it means that the rainfall rates are getting heavier, and our rain events, while they may become fewer, they are getting heavier and they could lead to more flooding.
So if I'm a retiree, if I'm an old ag with plans to come back to the motherland, so I can watch Aggie football and so forth, like, what do I do with this information?
Yeah, so AARP really wanted to do this because, the reason that people decide to go live somewhere to retire is because they want to enjoy the community. They want to make sure that they're safe, that their assets are safe. You want to come watch Aggie sports. So what do you do with that information? I think first of all is think about how hot Aggie football is. Last season I wore long sleeves to one game and that was it. Not to say they were uncomfortable every game, but that's not exactly normal, right? So think about the things that you're putting yourself, especially when it comes to heat. If you're coming back to Bryan and College Station because you do want to go watch Aggie athletics, you're putting yourself outside. And when it comes to springtime, the beginning of summertime, and then the end of summertime, you're putting yourself into heat that could make you sick, that could be harmful to you. And that's just one example of what that heat can do for our population for retirees, essentially.
Any more insights on that particular ranking before we go to the next one?
Yeah, I think that what's interesting is ahead of us on the list is Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Wilmington, North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina. So you're looking at places that are retiring because of hurricanes and sea level rise. Just behind us on the list, Austin, Texas, which has a lot more concrete than us, but also has as the same climate fingerprint, and Boise, Idaho.
Wait, how'd they creep in there?
They are actually one of the fastest warming cities in the United States. Really? Reno, Nevada is actually the absolute fastest that we've analyzed, but Boise is usually at the top of the list. Yeah, but heat, again, comes down to heat.
Okay. You ready to move on to the next ranking?
Let's do it.
So you sent me this one. The Wall Street Journal recently ranked College Station Bryan number 3 on its list of upcoming boom towns with a projected economic growth of nearly 178% over the next 50 years. Cities celebrate that kind of thing. I've found that as a bragging point on the City of College Station's website. But why does this concern you?
Yeah, okay. So we've talked about climate change. So when you think about not just focusing on summer, but it's easiest because that's when we feel the heat. So everyone's argument is always against climate change is always, well, it's Texas. Of course it's hot, right? You've got the heat of the summer, and then you've got the heat that's being added because of climate change. And then with all of this growth, which is great, you get economics, you get knowledge, you get these businesses that we enjoy. Not saying that that's bad, but people have to live somewhere. Our roads have to get bigger. We're putting more cars out there. So essentially what we're doing is we're taking away our natural Bryan College Station green space, and we're building up the environment. So another human caused aspect of this here is urban heat island effect, right? We're adding more things to the city that on top of climate change are also going to make it hotter to live here and to enjoy our time here. For all those people that are going to be moving here, is it going to be too hot for them to actually enjoy living here by that point?
So talk about heat islands, because I have to tell you, I was not familiar with the term urban heat islands until my latter months with the city of College Station, when they made a presentation to the city council and so forth. Talk about heat islands and what that means here.
Yeah. Okay. So think about, if you're a longtime Brazos County or Bryan and College Station resident, right? Think about what's the city used to look like, what the campus used to look like. And then now think about how many more buildings, roads, subdivisions, all of that has been added. And again, not saying that that's a bad thing, but we have to think about how we're doing it.
Sure.
So essentially what we've done is we've taken away natural vegetation, natural green space that naturally kept us cool and kept it as the classic, this is Texas, it's always hot and humid. And it's adding heat because the roads absorb and emit heat. Buildings, especially all the high rises that we've seen go up in town, take in the heat and then re-emit it. Our cars on the road, we're seeing more of those. I drove down University today, and I try not to do that because it's usually so packed, right?
Yeah.
Those emit heat. And then when the temperature goes up, we crank our AC up. And while it's keeping you cool on the inside, it's emitting heat on the outside. So all those factors are adding heat. So it's that urban heat island, right? It's always going to be a little hotter inside the city than it is going to be maybe if you live near a park or if you live outside of the city.
Yeah. Well, speaking of College Station, I know that I guess it was in late 2021 when they first started talking about taking some steps to cool College Station. I think the initiative was called Cooling College Station, and mostly through tree plantings. And I was skimming through their current budget document, and it showed that they had allocated, I believe, it's $375,000 to plant 400 trees. I think at a couple of parks is where the location was going to be. Good step, but me and my simple thinking, planting more trees at a park is great, but should we be trying to plant more trees in some proximity of where high rises are going and displacing that natural environment you were talking about? Yeah.
So, one, when people ask us, I do a lot of interviews now just talking about different climate change aspects. And that's always the question. It's always the thing I want to leave you with is, what can I do? I don't want to just drop a bunch of information on you and say like, all right, go figure it out. Native vegetation and especially green canopies, trees, are a great way to start because it shields that concrete and those unnatural things that are warming our city. And so the heat can't absorb into it and then re-emit, right? Parks are great because we do like going to the park. I can't tell you how many times my kids want to go to the park in the summertime or go to the splash pad. And that's great for them, but I'm not getting in the splash pad and it's just hot. So it's not a bad place to start. But one thing we know about climate change and we know about urban heat island effect is that it doesn't, heat doesn't impact us all equally. Those with lower incomes or they live, in a place that doesn't have a lot of yard space or green space, we know that they feel hotter because they're living in more built up environments, right? So when we're talking about where we can put trees, those are the neighborhoods really that need them the most. The ones that have more big buildings that a lot of families live in, a lot more concrete, a lot more parking lots because you have to put so many parking spaces in for these buildings. Parking lots, even though you don't think about them as anything other than a place to put your car, which is kind of a wild idea anyway, that would be a great place to bring down some of that heat because it's one of the biggest places that we see heat come from as well.
Yeah. If you just tuned in, I'm Jay Sokol. You're listening to Brazos Matters. We're visiting with Shel Winkley, former chief meteorologist at KBTX and now a climate engagement specialist at Climate Central. So in terms of cooling our community, are there more impactful solutions than simply planting trees? Like, do any cities come to mind that you observe for reducing or reversing the effects of these increasing temperatures?
Yeah, planting is one of the easiest things we can do. And that's before you get into the idea of water, because water is important for everybody in Texas. And I think if you're not thinking about water in the future, you should be, right?
Sure.
And plants need water. But San Antonio has a great program. I was watching a thing, KSAT News. You could go to the city and get funds to go buy native plants that are native to San Antonio, and they would pay you to put those in your yard because it's lower water that they need because they're heat resistant, and they help to bring down the temperature in your neighborhood. So the city of San Antonio said, yes, we'll fund this if you're willing to do the work and go and put these plants in the ground. That's a great initiative.
Sounds nice.
Yeah. The city of Dallas, they led one of the largest urban heat assessments in the United States. And they also focused heavily on trees and plants, but also things like green roofs or cool roofs. So instead of absorbing the heat that's coming down on these big skyrise buildings or these big, multi-level buildings, it reflects it back off. So it's not absorbing and re-emitting, essentially, because that's how we feel our heat. I think that's important maybe to step back for a second, just to go to meteorology. You're not feeling the heat from the sun directly, right? You're feeling the heat that's being absorbed into the ground, turned into a different wavelength of energy, and then warming up the air around it. So the sun's bypassing you. You feel it, but the sun's bypassing you and actually warming the ground, which then warms the air around us.
Okay, interjecting quickly.
Yes.
What do you think about rooftops that have gardens and other greenery? Is that gimmicky or is that feasible?
It's great. It's for multiple reasons.
We don't see much of that here, though.
We don't. I think we have one here on campus, or we did at one point.
I think we do. I'm glancing over at Matt. Do we have one of those? Yeah, he's nodding yes.
Yeah, so they're great because they're especially in cities, right? There's not a lot of areas for a neighborhood garden or for you to go and grow your own food if you want to. Mm-hmm. So it cools the tops of the roofs, and it allows us to do something with the space that's useful, which is make a salad, make produce, make dinner for the night. Yeah.
We need more of that here on campus.
I would love to see more. And the gardens is a great place. That's a great example of how you can use a space and grow plants to make things cooler.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So development and growth, you talked about it. It's everywhere. At Bryan at College Station and on the Texas A&M University campus. And that's a great sign. If I remember hearing the saying, if you're not growing, you're dying. And I don't know if that's trite or if it's accurate, but we are growing and it shows some prosperity. But maybe the most visible representation of that growth are all the high rises in Northgate. I mean, there are a bunch of things going up right now at the same time. So with Legacy Point and other high rises popping up, could these things in this kind of concentrated area have a real cumulative impact on our climate? It's
not good. It is. They are.
Okay.
Right. And we know. So we've done the studies. We've looked at different cities all across the United States, including Bryan and College Station. And so essentially, when you walk around campus, let's start here. It can feel as hot as 8 degrees hotter on a summer day than it would if you're walking around a park because of all the buildings and the concrete we have here on campus. Mm-hmm. Let's go across University Drive to Northgate. Northgate right now, and that's not, we've got new sky rises being built right now and more parking garages that go with it. Right now, Northgate feels about 7.5 degrees warmer on a summer afternoon than it would if you didn't have that built-up environment. Than it would for an old ag who graduated maybe in the 70s. Mm-hmm. It feels 7.5 degrees warmer for you today walking around Northgate than it did for those ags that were class of 70, 75.
Give me more trees over there.
More trees over there.
More shade structures, more... I mean, there are reasons why you're seeing that kind of intense development over there, obviously. What concentration of students, they can walk or bike over, don't necessarily need cars, keeps them from congesting other arterials and so forth. But temperatures are going to go up.
Temperatures are going to go up. And so you've got all these people living in one area, and you've got a Northgate district that we want to continue to see vibrant and the businesses thriving there as well, because that's, again, economic growth. But who wants to be outside on a July afternoon when it's above what is the hottest temperature that we expect in a year, and then it can feel as much as 7 to 10 degrees on top of that, right? Like you don't want to be outside visiting these areas or experiencing the city because it is so hot outside. If you go down the street just a little bit, Century Square, beautiful area.
Sure.
Lots of things to do. That can feel as much as 8 degrees hotter than what the air temperature is because of all the concrete and the AstroTurf and all the things we have there. I think what is the most interesting, maybe the most staggering for me, can you guess in all of Brazos County where the biggest urban heat island impact is?
Oh, man.
Put you on the spot.
Costco.
South College Station. No, sorry. Let me back up. Say Costco again.
Costco.
South Brazos County.
South Brazos County.
South Brazos County. So what's interesting, there's a lot of growth that's happened down there, right?
Don't tell me it's Santa's Wonderland.
It's not Santa's Wonderland. It may be in December, but it's LED lights now, so they're not emitting as much heat, right? No, there's been a lot of growth down there, and I thought that was staggering, was that even in the, everyone thinks about Bryan College Station, all the concrete that's happening around here, but think about how much development has happened on the south end of the county.
Oh, I guess that's right. Yeah.
They now experience versus what just 10, 20 years ago, almost 9 degrees warmer on a summer afternoon than what you would have if you lived out there, say, in the 90s or even the early 2000s.
Because this, I guess, was greenfield, and now suddenly...
roads, subdivision, houses.
Yeah, rooftops like crazy.
Yep.
Wow. Interesting.
I thought that was interesting because I really thought that campus in the Northgate area would have been the highest number, but no, South Brazos County.
So for people who either have lived here a long time or they used to go to school here, left, and they've come back, and they say, wow, the weather really feels different. Like, is the weather really different here? Because when I was here in the 80s, I recall it raining a lot. And then it feels like it didn't really rain that much for a while, but now it feels like it's raining a lot again. Like, is this change real, or do we just not remember correctly?
No, that's the thing. It's like when you talk about the extreme weather events, right? You have to go off people's memories. And that's a big factor of it here. It's essentially weather whiplash. So I remember when I first got here in 2009 and started working on BBTM with our good friend Barbara Smith, right? I remember coming from Amarillo, Texas, and I had all these severe weather ideas. And my news director, Mike George at the time, was like, this is great. We don't have that much severe weather here. And I think it was around 2015 that me and the team really noticed like a shift. Big hail events, more tornado events, more flooding events. Like you could just see that with the severe weather itself. But again, there's a lot of different things. So we know using attribution science, just looking at the trends of data, we see the upward trend that the temperatures have taken, right? Again, the atmosphere is greedier. So while we may see these big rain events in the spring, we get to the summer, which is historically dry anyway, but the atmosphere can take more moisture from vegetation and from the ground. So that puts us into droughts faster, and it makes it harder to get out of those droughts because one rain event, even if it's a good soaking rain event, and then you don't get another one for another month, that rain's just going to get absorbed right back out. It's not your imagination. It's not to say that every weather event is climate change. But because of the warming that we've experienced, 2023 was the hottest summer of record for Bryan and College Station, surpassing 2011 and 2012 when they tied. 2023 was the Earth's hottest year of record, only to be undone by 2024, which was the Earth's hottest year of record. And then also became the United States' hottest year of record as well. 2025, right now, we're on pace for the same. But if the forecasts hold, we probably won't be the Earth's hottest year again this year. But it likely will end in a top 3 this year.
So because you are a data guy and data helps you do some predictive work, what do you see coming at us, say in the fall and the winter? Like what lies ahead for us in your opinion?
Yeah. So a couple different things. One, if you really like cool weather, Like, you like a cool October?
Who doesn't?
I love October, and it feels like they've been kind of stolen from us, right? You want to get, you got the summertime feels off. You want to get the boots with the fur and the pumpkin spice lattes out. We understand that fall is a shrinking season because summer's lasting longer. We understand that winter is when you look at the United States, winter is the fastest warming season. And it's because fall weather is lingering a little longer, and spring weather is starting sooner. So beyond temperatures, that also means that severe weather season can start sooner. Good to get the rain, but we don't like getting the rain when you have hail that pelts down like we saw at the beginning of the year, right?
Yeah.
So you can get those severe weather storms earlier. Our droughts, again, they can become worse, but it's this big whiplash back and forth. Go through these big periods of drought, then you get these big rain events that cause flooding. And Texas is a land of drought. Like, we know that it's a drought that's going to be broken by a flood, but we're seeing that back and forth a lot more. Yeah.
So with our remaining couple of minutes here, beyond plant more trees, more native plants, as much greenery as you can, conserve the water that you use, all those good things. Any advice for us as we live season to season in Aggieland?
Yeah. So this is the part of the conversation where really people don't love to hear, but we know the problem is burning coal and oil and methane gas, right? That's essentially put this big wool blanket on the earth that has warmed things up. We have technology. It's getting cheaper by the day that we can use renewable energy. Texas uses it a lot. You know, one of the reasons that we haven't had blackouts or brownouts or rolling blackouts in the summertime, that ERCOT's been able to manage the grid, is because they've relied on battery power in the morning and the evening that would be juiced up partially because of renewable energy. We're one of the states that have the biggest wind energy and the biggest solar energy in the United States. That's a great thing that we can use. Not to say that we have the only thing is renewable, but we can put a lot of effort on that. Not everybody can go out and buy solar panels. Not everybody can go out and buy an EV, right? So the things that you can do, yes, the native vegetation's cool. Everyone always asks us, like, what's that one thing that I can do? And can I really make a difference as one person? If you plant something really cool in your garden, in your neighborhood, maybe your neighbor walking their dog is going to say, like, oh, that's really cool. I want to do that too, right? So you can spark that. But the biggest thing I think I want to take away is the thing that we're doing today. Communication and conversation is a solution. And so just have those conversations with your friends, your neighbors, go to city council, talk with them. We love the city. We all don't especially love being overly hot. Let's see what we can do.
Shel Winkley, thank you so much for being on Brazos Matters. Friend of KAMU, always great to see you.
Always good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you guys for listening and for watching, and hope you have a great day. You've been listening to Brazos Matters on KAMU.